Lipscomb is technically the second best opponent that the Wildcats will have faced thus far, but is Mark Pope's squad really in any trouble tomorrow night?
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be previewing Kentucky basketball's matchup with the Lipscomb Bisons. Not bison, singular, Bisons, plural. Going to dive into what Lipscomb does well, what they struggle with, kind of what they've been so far this season. Going to dive into this matchup, give you our thoughts and our predictions. Before we wrap up the show, also going to look at the AP Top 25, a massive surge for Mark Pope's squad. Going to break that down again at the end of the show. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms out there. If you're watching on YouTube, would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. If you're listening on podcast, I would love it if you subscribe there as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You can visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Kentucky basketball taking on the Lipscomb Bisons. So we're going to learn a little bit about Lipscomb here to start, kind of break down what they do well. We're going to kind of break down what they may struggle with against Kentucky. We're going to give our thoughts and analysis, and then we'll dive into that sweet, sweet AP Top 25. So Lipscomb, so far this season, the Bisons are 2-3 with victories over Duquesne and Wofford. 77-72 win to open the season over Duquesne, and then a 78-69 win over Wofford. In their 3 losses, they have played against, I would argue, significantly better competition than Duquesne and Wofford. They have lost to Arkansas, Belmont, and Western Kentucky. The Razorbacks only beat Lipscomb by 16 points in a 76-60 win. I say only as if this is not still a top 130 team on KenPom, but Arkansas really didn't shoot very well in that game, and if I'm not mistaken, it was pretty close at one point in that contest, but Arkansas able to pull away there. Belmont, they lost that game by 1 point against the Bruins in what was a back-and-forth affair until very late, where Belmont was able to pull away, and then they lost on the road against Western Kentucky, number 125, according to KenPom. That was also a back-and-forth affair until Western Kentucky took control with about a fourth of the game left. So that is kind of where we sit here so far. Lenny A. Cuff, the head coach, in his 6th season, he is coming off of back-to-back 20-win seasons. So this is not a bad ASUN team, and if I'm not mistaken, that is where they play, yes, in the ASUN Conference. They have been, for a couple of years now, a pretty decent squad. Now, what they haven't been able to do is make the NCAA tournament, but they've still been okay nonetheless. Whenever you go and look on KenPom, kind of see what they're about, there's not really a whole lot that stands out in terms of strength or weakness necessarily. They're pretty balanced on both sides of the ball so far to start this season. 136 in adjusted offensive efficiency, 141 in defensive efficiency. Pretty average in terms of tempo, pretty average in terms of shooting splits, and I know that their three-point percentage, which currently ranks 204th nationally, that's low, but it's because of their most recent game. They're not as bad as their most recent game against WKU, where they went, if I'm not mistaken, just 5 of 31 from beyond the arc. They rely on the three-point shot a pretty decent amount. They've got a couple of players in their front court that are pretty solid. Overall, 2-3 record, but still projected to finish 21-10, 13-5 in the ASUN. They're just projected to go out there and dominate the ASUN. They're supposed to finish this season, according to KenPom, on like a 10-11 game winning streak. So this is a team that I think Kentucky, heading into this one, you need to be eyes wide open, wide awake for. And this is something that I think Lamont Butler and Amari Williams and a couple other people during Kentucky's press conference earlier today, previewing this game, actually said, yeah, no, we are paying attention to Lipscomb. This is a team that can absolutely beat us, and we want to be able to give all of our attention and focus to it instead of just kind of being still, I guess, drunk on that victory over Duke. And I'm using my own words there when I say that. Lipscomb, respectable, played competitively against an SEC opponent that a lot of people think is of similar caliber to the Kentucky Wildcats. Now coming into this game, and it's interesting when you talk about just kind of how the season's going to shake out for Kentucky, especially in the non-con slate. Kentucky is going to play Arkansas later this year. Lipscomb's already done that. Lipscomb has already played Western Kentucky. Kentucky's going to play Western Kentucky here in just a few weeks. And then also, both Kentucky and Lipscomb will play Jackson State. That's a game right after this one for Lipscomb here. So interesting, just kind of how the schedules just kind of intertwine here between a decent ASUN school, and one of the best programs in all of college basketball. I find that kind of entertaining. So Lipscomb 2-3, 16-point loss to John Calipari and the Arkansas Razorbacks. 6-year head coach Lenny Acuff. Nothing to scoff at with this program. They have relied again on three-pointers a decent bit, but they've not been incredibly efficient. Again, they're just not as bad as their game against WKU. So that's kind of what we know about the Lipscomb Bisons. Again, it's not Lipscomb Bison. For some reason, it's Lipscomb Bisons. So that is what Lipscomb is. Balanced and a strong front court piece that I think we need to kind of dive into specifically a little bit before we get into what Lipscomb's front court could do against the Kentucky Wildcats. I want to tell you guys about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy that know being a passionate football or basketball fan is not just a hobby. Of course, we Kentucky fans know it is a way of life. And it takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, celebrations, or even an agonizing overtime. And we know all too well just how emotionally draining and physically draining that Duke game was. I feel like I lost 5 years off of my life watching that game. That's why 5 Hour Energy has created Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for super fans like you and I. The fans who are first to the parking lot and who are the last to leave. We see you. You know what else gave me a little bit of fan fuel this week? Of course, it was the victory over Duke on Tuesday, where Kentucky, at the very end of that game, finding various ways to clutch it out. Layups and the foul. You were able to get Cooper Flagg to make a couple of mistakes late. You played really hard defense. You executed on out-of-bounds plays. It's everything you wanted to see from the Cats. That's what gave me fuel this week. It was incredible. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter which team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. So whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. And that's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. So what's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. It's all available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. Again, whatever you do this week, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. All right, continuing along here on the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would really appreciate it if you did so. We are previewing Kentucky basketball's game versus Lipscomb. Pretty straight up, generic, decent stuff about the Bison. There's not a whole lot to write home about here. Oh, except their power forward, who's averaging over 20 points per game. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to try and not butcher this last name. Jacob Ognasiewicz. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's Ognacevic. It could be Ognasiewicz. It could be Ognasiewicz. I am just going to say Siewicz and roll with it. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, there we go. Ognasiewicz had 30 points in Lipscomb's season opener. Just dropped a fat 30 bomb out the gate. He had 28 points versus Belmont. He had 16 versus Arkansas. He's been a pretty solid volume scorer for them so far. 6'8" power forward, again, will play a little bit of 5 for them, but primarily plays the 4. A senior 6'8", 220-pound power forward, 3 of 12 in his most recent game against WKU. That's pretty much the reason why Lipscomb lost, is that their volume guy did not shoot very well. Now, the last time we did a preview episode where Kentucky faced off against a mid-major, we talked about how that power forward that they had could have caused possibly matchup problems for the Wildcats. The Bucknell game, where Kentucky came in, they were worried about Noah Williamson, the 7-footer who could step out to the three-point line, and he went ice cold against the Cats. I don't expect Ognjesiewicz to have an extremely inefficient game back-to-back performances, but it's possible. More than likely, this staff is focusing pretty heavily on Ognjesiewicz and what they need to do defensively to kind of shut him down. 20.6 points per game, 8 rebounds, 1.2 assists so far this season. You look at some of the other major contributors so far this year as well. Second in points per game so far this season is Will Pruitt, a guard, 12.8 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists per game, 1.4 steals per contest. The point guard alongside him, Joe Anderson, averaging almost 2 steals per game with 4 assists and 9.6 points. Anderson, a more efficient three-pointer than Pruitt has been so far this season, but both of them are capable from knocking it down from beyond the arc. Also, something I want to point out here, Ognjesiewicz, if I'm not mistaken, he has taken the most three-pointers on the team so far this year. He's 10 of 30. Clean 33.3%. He's shooting almost 60% from inside the arc, shooting almost 80% from the foul line. So he is the guy that you need to focus on outside of, I would say, honestly, Joe Anderson, because he's only the only player on this team that has an assist rate worth a rip, and he's the only player on this team that shoots efficiently from 3 and has done so with a little bit of volume. He's 10 of 25. Ognjesiewicz and Anderson. Once more, you've got 2 of your better players. It's kind of like the Bucknell game. You've got 2 of your better players assigned defensively to the other team's, essentially their 2 best players. You've got Lamont Butler on Anderson. You've got Andrew Carr on Ognjesiewicz. You can put Amari Williams on him as well if you need to. This works out for Kentucky in the end. Again, there's nothing statistically that stands out about the Bison 5 games into the season for them. They're average. They shoot decently from most spots. I think that the Western Kentucky game has really bogged down their three-point shooting percentage. Otherwise, I think they'd be average there. Defensively, they're average from beyond the arc, holding teams from 3. They're not great inside the arc, but they're not like awful there. They don't really block shots that well. They don't create a ton of steals, a ton of turnovers. They're average in allowing extra rebounds. They're their worst statistical category is their offensive rebound percentage themselves. They don't get a ton of second chance looks, which should be something Kentucky really tries to clamp down on to make sure that they, with their tempo, don't give away more possessions than they need to on the glass. This is an average team, according to analytics, that very well could beat Kentucky if the shots fall. But I don't know if they do. It's kind of like what we were saying about the Bucknell game, right? It's like I don't necessarily know if Bucknell has it in them, but they have the ability to cause problems for sure. This game could be something that's at least a game that's competitive for 75% of the way. I would expect Kentucky to take over at some point. It's all about whether or not Kentucky goes out there and they lay an egg from 3, though. If you're shooting like 26, 27% from 3, 75% of the way into this game, it's going to be a dogfight to the end because Kentucky's going to continue to take outside shots. But there's also the chance that Kentucky shoots 37% from 3 and just runs away with this one. I'm going to lead towards the latter. Right now, KenPom has Kentucky winning this game 87-70. It's probably right about where it should be, honestly. I see Kentucky scoring 85+. I don't know if I see Lipscomb scoring 70+, but it all depends on what happens at the end of the game. If Kentucky's up by enough to where they kind of lay back or put different players in, They give up points. It's kind of what happened against Bucknell, honestly. So give me Kentucky to win. I'll just say what Kim Pom says. I'll go 87-80 and let it rock. Final note here about this game. The last time the Bisons defeated a team inside the top 50 of the Kim Pom rankings, and maybe I skimmed over a game. I tried to make sure I didn't. Last time they beat a team inside the top 50, and Kentucky currently ranked 22nd. That was November 17th of 2021. Number 45 Dayton. They beat 78-59. Like, blew them out in Dayton. But it was Dayton, and that was 2021. So, brief pause for water. And I want to ask you guys, I'm sorry if that sounded disgusting on the mic. I'm sorry. I want to ask you guys, what do you think? Do you think Kentucky's going to win by a lot? Do you think they're going to win by a little? Do you think they're going to lose? How do you feel about this Lipscomb game? It's Ognesiewicz and Anderson in my mind, and that's about it. Will Pruitt could be a problem, but they're averaging about 70 points per game right now, and that's coming out the gate against opponents that they could have beaten or at least scored more against. So, I don't know. I don't know. Kentucky, I think, is going to beat Lipscomb, and they're going to do so while ranked inside the top 10. Where are the Kentucky Wildcats ranked in the AP poll? The new AP poll that was updated earlier today. We're going to dive into that in just a little bit. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. Tackle the NFL action, all of it, over at FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if they win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing better than going to experience a college basketball game live, the sights, the sounds, the beautiful atmosphere that was the State Farm Champions Classic. Nothing beats that live. You guys know that, and that's why you need to go to Game Time to get all of your tickets to Kentucky basketball events. And not just Kentucky basketball games, but also concerts, shows, theater, not just sports near you. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It's Game Time Picks. It's all in pricing. It's views from your seat. It's the lowest price guarantee. It is the perfect app. I've been using them for several years now, going to MLB, NBA, or not in NBA, not yet, but I will be. I've gone to college football, college basketball, college baseball, MLB games as well. I've gone to a couple of concerts as well. Shout out Porter Robinson. And you guys can take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time Picks by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, using code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, wrapping up the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky. So, the AP Top 25 was released, and I was kind of sitting here wondering before it came out, will the voters, after seeing a victory against Duke, will the AP Top 25 voters launch Kentucky into the stratosphere up into the top 10, or will they have them at 12th? Because keep in mind, Kentucky was ranked 19th whenever they played Kentucky, and they've not played another game. It was the only game they played last week while they were ranked 19th. Ladies and gentlemen, the Wildcats are now ranked number 9. Jumped 10 spots in the AP Top 25. Duke down to number 12. They dropped 6. Wildcats facing off against Lipscomb this week. They're going to be ranked number 9 while that happens. The race for number 9 happening this season. It's fitting that the Wildcats are now ranked number 9th. Some of you have been saying on Twitter. Kentucky will also face off against Jackson State Friday, November 22nd, before taking on Western Kentucky next Tuesday. So you got 2 games here you can play as the number 9 ranked team. You want to go through the rest of the top 25. Kansas is currently at the top at number 1. UConn at number 2. Gonzaga at number 3. Auburn the highest-ranked SEC team right now at number 4, taking down Houston, if I'm not mistaken, just a week or so ago. Iowa State at number 5, Purdue at number 6, Houston at number 7. Alabama dropped 6 spots to number 8 after losing to Purdue 87-78 earlier, not earlier this week. I think it was over the weekend. And then, like I mentioned, Kentucky again. At number 9, to round out the top 10, you've got North Carolina. You've got Tennessee at number 11. Again, Duke at number 12. Baylor at 13. Creighton, Marquette, and Indiana, 14, 15, 16. Arizona, Cincinnati, 3-0 right now. Number 18, Wisconsin's number 19. They were not ranked until they played Arizona. They throttled the Wildcats in Wisconsin, 103-88. Crazy court storming there. Arizona, not as good as some people think they are. Wisconsin, perennially underranked, if that's the correct word. Consistently underranked. We'll go with that word. Act like I didn't say the other word, even if it counted, even if it made sense. Arkansas dropped 2 spots to number 20. They beat Troy 65-49. If I'm not mistaken, John Calipari and the Razorbacks were actually down at halftime to the Troy Trojans before coming back in that game. I believe I saw a tweet earlier today, and I'm going to try and pull this up quickly. Arkansas is currently last or second in the SEC in points per game. 3-pointers made, 3-pointers attempted, free throws made, free throws attempted, free throw percentage, offensive rebounding, and assists. Last or second to last in the SEC in points. 3-pointers made, 3-pointers attempted, free throws made, free throws attempted, free throw percentage, offensive rebounding, and assists. Yikes. It's about as bad, barring an upset to like Troy, as it could be so far for the Cats. And I'm looking at their KenPom page right now. It's not looking good on offense. And there's a chance it gets worse. Texas A&M still somehow ranked at number 23 after losing to UCF to open the season. They beat Ohio State 78-64. That's not a top 25 team. It happened to be a ranked win, but it's not a top 25 team. Ohio State isn't, at least as of now. I say that, someone's going to clip that, and Kentucky's going to lose to the Buckeyes by 30 somehow. St. John's is at number 22. They should have been ranked. Patino, take us home, baby. They're good. I'm pulling for St. John's, man. Clearly not more than Kentucky. I mean, if these two teams met in the NCAA tournament, it's like that meme of that one guy. I don't know what movie it's from, but he's like crying as he holds a weapon to like shoot somebody. Like he doesn't want to do it. It's like, we got to take you out, St. John's. I'm so sorry. Anyway, we're going on a tangent here. Florida is number 21. Rutgers still in the top 25 with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. They are cooking. I don't know if you've seen them, but they look smooth, dude. Illinois in the top 25 right now, 3-0 in the Big Ten. Didn't move there. So that's it. Kentucky ranked top 10, baby. Let's go. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm happy with number 9. I'm shocked that they're that high to begin with. I thought they were going to be like 13th, 12th. Turns out that's where Duke is. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hey, you can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Kentucky. You can follow me on Twitter at Lance Dawe _ You can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.